Okay, cool. So we are live. Hello, everyone watching the reopening town hall. I'm glad that you could join us. I'm here with Patrick, Fina, and Katherine Stetz. They will be answering your questions about the reopening. Okay, cool. So we are live. Hello, everyone watching the reopening town hall. Yeah, I'm glad that you could join us. If you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, feel free to do so.
Great. My name is Katherine Stetz. I'm the Vice Provost of Student Affairs and Dean of Students at Illinois Tech. I've been at the university, it'll be 19 years this year, so I've seen a lot of iterations of Illinois Tech, and excited to be able to answer any questions that students have. And I also, you'll see everyone, you'll see a lot of, maybe if this is, I don't know what your view is, but there are a number of administrators and student affairs team and enrollment team folks who are here to listen and just kind of make sure that we're all paying attention to what is on the student minds. But I mean, and Mike Goz is also on the call, so maybe
hi, everybody.
Mike, you want to say hi and a quick introduction?
Hi, so I'm Mike Goz, Vice President for Enrollment and Senior Vice Provost. And like Katie, I've been around a long time. Started as a faculty member, professor in MMAE, and then went on to the administrative side in 2006, focusing on student success. And then I later on went into enrollment, and now I'm in both. So now it's full circle. Glad to be available and with you today.
Yeah, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. And yeah, without further ado, I suppose we can get into the questions here. So first question that we have here is, how will the procedure followed by student travelers once they arrive on campus be like? So I guess the question is, or yeah, go ahead.
Katie, you want me to begin on that one?
Sure.
And then we can, I'll get help if I need it. So first of all, it's going to be the interesting thing right now is we are not expecting new international students this fall on campus just because of the visa situations around the world. The embassies are closed, and if they have opened sporadically, they've either they're taking on too few or they're backlogged. And so we're really for our new international students, we're really preparing them, as many as possible, for an online start in fall. We then have students, that are, for example, in the United States. Many of them are, domestic students, some are international. And, we're preparing for an on-campus start, for those students. And so, right now, you'll see in the news that things are changing kind of rapidly with, for example, some, case spikes in Florida and Texas and certain regions, Arizona and other places. And you'll see like some, debates going on. The mayor of New York is debating on whether to let people from Florida in his state without self-quarantining for 14 days. And so, right now, we're not planning, Illinois is not planning on doing that, but gosh, things change rapidly. So we're in the upper administration meetings, we're talking about these things. So we are, we're prepared to have to self-quarantine if we have to, but right now, so far, we do not have to. For example, after spring break, one of the things we did is we had that situation, we had some tough calls to make with, canceling some study abroad trips to certain areas of the world, but also students coming back to campus. And some of them did have to be self-quarantined at that time. We made arrangements in our dorms, but also the South Loop Hotel helped us a lot, where we self-quarantined students, some students there, and had food service going over there. So yeah, I felt really sorry for the students who had to self-quarantine because, but the rooms were really nice. It was a nice place and we did the best we could. I don't know, Katie, if you want to expound on that.
Yeah, just one point that I can add is we are prepared to have rooms ready for students to either quarantine or self-isolate. And that would be if somebody actually tests positive for the virus and they have a housing contract, they would be, we would have a space for them to quarantine. And that means that they would be under the care of a medical professional for the period of time that they're in quarantine. The test, again, if they test positive, if they come into contact with somebody who has also tested positive, we will have rooms available for people to self-quarantine as well. And that's how the hotel was also helpful for students who more came in contact and were not symptomatic and did not test positive. So we do have some flexibility and can anticipate either situation, whether we have to start asking students to quarantine for 2 weeks before coming to the residence halls, or once they get there. We will keep our finger on the pulse of that guidance as time goes on.
Awesome. Okay. I think part of this next question was answered by your previous statements, but the next question is, will housing be prepared to accommodate individual students in each dorm, at least for the first month of class, to prevent any possible transmission of COVID-19? You guys were kind of saying that.
Yeah. Katie, let me just start that and then you can go from there. So one of the kind of advantages we have this fall is really the reopening of Kasich Hall, which is designed for our first and second year students. It has over 300 rooms. Our initial plan, this is before COVID, we were expecting about 1,430 students in our housing. And we also expected about 300 plus rooms in MSV to be vacant. Just because when our student body, obviously isn't growing as fast as our housing stock, and the long-term goal, as you'll hear from Vice President Watts, is, eventually we would like to, maybe that will be in 5 years, but take MSV offline. But right now, it gives us this advantage of being able to spread out students and accommodate those students who want to be or need to be in a single room. So Katie, you want to add to that one?
Yeah, sure. So we have been open, many universities closed their residence halls and had everybody move home. But we've been open since March 23rd. I mean, from the day that we went online instruction, the residence halls have stayed open. We have successfully quarantined and isolated students so that they would be in a space that would provide them the opportunity not to leave. So they would have a private bathroom, either a microwave or a kitchen. Food service, we actually deliver meals, so there's no need to go out shopping and things like that. So, and we've been doing this pre-COVID. We have always had a space on campus. We've always worked with infectious diseases in the way that we've been guided, following the guidance of the city and state, for sure. This is a little bit more intense than things we've done in the past, but we have shown that that we actually did pretty well. So we had over 500 students in the residence halls between March and May, and we didn't have one case of COVID in the residence halls. And of course, you've all seen the message that went out from me last week that we do have a student who tested positive in the residence halls, and that student is no longer in quarantine. That student is healthy, has successfully gone through the protocol and everything that person needed to do. And there was another person who was tested and was negative. So we, have one case in the residence halls. We handled it through our policies and procedures, and, we'll knock on wood. I obviously, it is real. The COVID-19 does affect people, we're prepared the best that we can be to assist our students if or when it occurs. So we, we know that this is going to be a community effort. So, the university is taking all of the possible precautions that we can to ensure that we have a safe and healthy environment. But it also is a community thing where everybody has to kind of follow those rules. So wearing masks, washing your hands, staying 6 feet apart, not having groups of more than 10 or 50, depending on where we are, at certain times. So if we're all following those rules, that's the best defense against a breakout, and then if things occur, we are prepared to handle those things in housing. What we're doing now is offering students the option of having a single room. They also can live with a roommate if they want to. So we're not really, we're not mandating either way, but we are trying to make it more flexible so that students have the ability to kind of pick and choose how they want to live in this next year. So there's a lot of exceptions that are going to go on for this 1 year. And it's definitely until the city and state tells us that we don't have to be we're in phase 5. We will most likely be under these expectations of sort of fluctuating rules and really looking at individual situations and doing our best decision making on those things. So I think that answers some stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much. So yeah, all right, we'll move on to the next question then. Will there be any changes / modifications to the 2020-2021 academic year's tuition?
At this time, no. And Mike, certainly if you want to chime in, but we're not changing the tuition as it stands right now, but Mike may have a few more details.
Yeah, the only thing I can say about that is that, there will be some students, for example, that'll be, online only. And for those students, there are some fees that don't apply, obviously.
Right. Okay, for sure.
But one thing, if you could help me out, and this is a little bit off topic, but the financial aid office is working tirelessly right now, trying to expand all of our CARES Act funding to help students. And so please help us. We need more applications. We need more applications from students. And this is, if you could help me spread the word, this is a significant amount of money. Some students feel, oh, I might not be eligible, or maybe the money should go to somebody else, but just encourage your colleagues to raise their hand here. And it is, each student, it's a significant amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, so this is money from the government that the university has to help students, kind of like a stimulus check for those who apply and meet certain criteria, but it is money that we are expected to give back to our students. So I think that's important, everyone.
And then it's important to the university because as we give out money to students, that makes us then eligible to receive other funding that we've incurred for COVID-related expenses. So it's kind of a matching campaign. So, and it's really easy. The students just have to pretty much fill out a really short form, and we're moving quickly on that. And the president is really pushing hard to get us to, move those funds as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay. So there was an add-on question. So will fees like the student activity fee and like lab fees and things of the sort, will those still be available, or will those still be assigned to students?
So I'm going to speak on the lab fee. Katie's going to speak on the activity fee. So a lot of the lab fees will not be there. Some will be there. And it really depends on what the situation is. So for example, the provost is requiring that if, for example, a class has a lab fee, that there's something, and let's just say this particular class, like in the spring that the class was online, the lab fee had to be dedicated towards something the students would benefit by that particular term. Like, for example, new software that they used for a particular lab to do it virtually versus hands-on. So that's kind of the direction from on top on that particular issue. And then Katie, if you want to expound on the activity fee.
Sure. So there is the student activity fee, and then student activity fee. And we do plan to provide programming and use that money to support students and student services on campus. So a lot of that money, well, the student activity fee and then the student services fee are a little bit different, but they're very important to the student experience. And of course, the student activity fund is what Finance Board uses to work and works with the student organizations on that. And so we do plan to keep that fee just as is, because it does go directly back to the students in lots of different ways, right? And then the student activity or the student services fee, that actually goes to fund all of the people who and other services that will still be happening. So all student affairs folks and athletics and our Student Health and Wellness Center and our Office of Technology Services, all of those, and then some, right? Those aren't all of them, but it's really important that because those fees actually go to support students' experience. Now, there will be some exceptions. Like I said, there's always we are working in this world of exceptions, and we will work with students individually, and definitely those students who are distance learners or online classes and not on campus, that's a different category than those who are participating on campus. So we do understand that, and we are talking about those things regularly. So there will be different answers for different scenarios, but that's the overall kind of overarching answer.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so next question. What cleaning procedures have been applied on campus like so far?
So our custodial team under our facilities arm has, they have really increased mostly, they've been cleaning everything, but you'll notice a lot of things that everyone touches a lot more being wiped down, handles on doors, on restroom doors, on buttons and things like that. So they're increasing the amount of attention that these common areas get and where high touch areas actually are. Right now, I don't know if anyone's been to campus. I go to campus twice a week and I see them all the time. There's not as many people on campus, so I think when there are more people, we can anticipate seeing a lot more common area cleaning. The team is in the residence halls, and they are touching on those common area spaces, the lounges, the restrooms, the fitness spaces, the kitchenettes. And we're also asking students and providing hand sanitizer as you walk into buildings. We have spray bottles and things so that students can wipe off surfaces before they use them, after they use them, to kind of go back to what I said before. It takes the whole community is going to have to help here, where our custodial team is going to be on it. We as people, and we're using stuff, are going to have to kind of supplement a lot of those things as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, and then a follow-up question there. Will students have the option to stay in dorms over breaks? Can some clarification be made about single dorm pricing that was stated in an announcement be made? And to which pricing change will that be applied to?
So we're not going to, so we are going to be very thoughtful about the pricing, and it's anticipated that we're not going to charge a student as a double as a single during these times. The prices are posted as they are, and generally you'll see that even in SSV and KSIC, the beds are the exact same price anyway. So what we won't be doing is doubling up. So generally right now, so before COVID, if you wanted to live in a single room and you wanted to ensure that you would only have a single room, we would have you pay the double the price, because generally we would be able to get the price of 2 beds. So we're going to ask one student to pay the price of 2 beds, which happens sometimes, but we're not going to be doing that this year. Again, the exceptions are out there. So right now, if you're living in a single room, you can anticipate paying that double room price, or whatever that 1 bed price is. We're not going to double that bed price. I think that's as clear as I can state it. There was another part to that question.
Oh, Katie, yeah, it was just, during breaks. So in the, in the fall semester, we'll have the calendar, we'll have, there's fall break, which is very short. There's Thanksgiving break, and then the end of semester. So we always have many of our students absolutely need to stay with us during those times, and even over the winter break. And so we will continue doing that, as usual, allowing students to stay during those times.
Yeah, so students can anticipate the residence halls not closing unless, of course, the city or the state makes it happen. But
Yeah.
at the university, we're not interested in that. We never were. The immediate, when everything started happening, our President Cram, was very interested in making sure that people had a place to stay if they needed one, and that's why we stayed open, and we continue to be open. Now, our population on campus right now is much lower than it was between March and May, but that's okay. So we have just about 200 students total on campus in the residence halls, and that's including the fraternities and sororities. So just so people have an idea of what we're dealing with. And as Mike alluded to earlier, we did say we are working with about 1,200 housing contracts. So we do anticipate having a fair amount of students in the residence halls for the fall.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, another follow-up question to that. Will students who signed a housing contract in March for fall 2020 be given the specific room they signed the contract for?
We were going to do everything we can to make that happen. That being said, since we've opened up the option to be in a single room, clearly that does eliminate the number of beds that we have. And so we're trying to make the best out of this kind of situation. So again, we're trying to give preference to the first and second year population, as the requirement is for them to be on campus. Then we have to look at the single requests in that population and then see how that pushes the rest of the assignments around. So I cannot say yes, but I do want to say we were going to do everything we can to give people their original request, but understand that those things will shift around. So there will be people who are reassigned because we just simply need the space.
Okay, sure. All right, so we'll move on to the next question here. Okay, so how has the Student Health and Wellness Center prepared for students who might be diagnosed with COVID-19?
So we're super prepared. We're doing a couple things. We're planning to have point of care testing ready to be on campus in the fall. So if students want to be tested on campus, we're working on a plan to make that happen. Anytime somebody goes into quarantine, immediately our health and wellness team contacts those students, and they call them at least once a day, and I'm thinking most of the time it's 3 times a day, to check in on the student, to do a temperature check, to ask some questions, and then they follow up the next day. So our health and wellness team has been working this whole time. Telemedicine is definitely a thing. Our counseling staff has been doing telecounseling sessions, and we've been dealing with these with sick people for a long time, and we'll continue the same things that we've been doing. I don't know if, Mike, you have if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, and then Gary Wally, our director, is on the call too. Hi, Gary, and so he can add to anything I say also. But he and his staff gave us a very comprehensive, I think, well thought out plan a couple weeks ago, and some of the aspects of the plan We're not sure yet, based on state and city guidelines, what we have to do and what we don't have to do. But the plan calls for it actually starts with kind of a periodic health checkups with the students. So for example, and this is just right now an example, but you could imagine, let's just say once a week, on Monday morning, you receive a text from Gary, and it's a yes, no kind of response. We're asking for, whether or not you're feeling any symptoms. And so most times students will get sick of this and get annoyed by it and keep saying no. But the good thing about it is, if you do say yes or you're not sure, it's a great platform that will tell you next steps. So it will give you the contact information to, for example, talk to somebody in the health and wellness center through telemedicine. So that's something we installed after March 23rd. So instead of having to schlep it to the tower, especially when you're not sure, you can call somebody on the telemedicine site and talk to them. They would then guide you as to what the next steps are. And so the next steps could be testing, and then with what Katie said with point of care testing, the great thing about that is you get a result in minutes instead of days. And so that in that case, if a student were to test positive, the student wouldn't have to wait very long. They could wait in a dignified place. And then if they do test positive, that's when, the self-quarantine step would then begin. And so it was really hard in March when the testing took so long. We had situations where students were sick, and it took like 5, 6, 7 days to get the test results back. And that's just a really long time for students to be in this I don't know what's going on category. And so that produced just a ton of anxiety. And it made it really difficult for us to, contact trace and other elements of that. So the point of care unit that Gary is working on is super important. We'll also have thermal cameras around campus. Right now we have one in State Street Village and one in the tower. And we'll have more, but that just provides it's almost like installing hand sanitizers in different locations, just encouraging this kind of ability to do, a self-check. And it just basically increases the awareness of health, and just kind of saying, yes, it's okay if you're exhibiting symptoms not to go to class. It's okay not to go to your on-campus job if you're exhibiting symptoms. So hopefully with the communication, the signage and other things, students hopefully will really know what to do.
And then in addition to that, we're looking for a satellite location, kind of a COVID unit, so to speak. So that way students who are feeling sick or need to be tested will go to a separate location than the Student Health and Wellness Center for all of that. So those plans are underway as well.
Okay, for sure. And I just wanted to raise one question about the thermal cameras. So those will be strictly for like COVID symptom detection and not necessarily for like security purposes, correct?
Right. I mean, really, they're just like a kiosk that's set off to the side that we're encouraging people to monitor themselves. So you would just go up to it. You're not going to automatically be tested like walking through a door. There's nothing like that. It's really voluntary. And it just takes the temperature of your wrist. You just put it over the sensor and then you can see your temperature. And there are signs at the machine that say, here's what you should be looking for. Here's what to do. Next sort of thing. So really it's voluntary. It's an option for students and faculty and staff because they are in other areas, just so that people feel that they have the tools to take care of themselves.
Yeah, and President Cram insisted that, this be private, that we're not collecting any data, and it be relatively inobtrusive and quick and easy. So it's really more of a health, it's almost like, giving people thermometers to carry around, but it's just a little bit easier to, walk through a station. Kind of the idea was similar to, it's almost like for a totally different purpose, but the stalls in the Galvin Library, where students walk in and walk out, those are for actually to make sure students don't walk out with books, but it's kind of a similar idea.
Okay.
But I mean, if you enter a building and don't go through that, that's okay too. It's just there, like people, in the past haven't washed their hands at every hand sanitizer. So that's okay too. But it's important that this is, private, and that it doesn't lead to a situation where, we certainly don't want kind of this policing environment where people are, not trusting of each other and looking at each other and pointing fingers. So privacy is really important.
Okay, fantastic. I just wanted to ask that. So, all right, we can move on to the next question here. Will dining services continue to provide a pick up and go service for the students?
Yeah, so Chartwell's, a parent company to our service providers, they have they have phases and how they're going to roll it all out. And obviously it will also mirror what our city and state guidelines and regulations are. But definitely there will be grab and go options. We're also installing 2 mobile ordering units, 2 additional ones. So last year we had it in the Bog, although we're not going to open the Bog for at least the fall. So we're actually going to put that mobile ordering unit over at 10 West. So we're actually going to have 3 live this year. We're going to have the ability to order from 10 West with your mobile app, from Center Court, and from Global Grounds with your mobile app. So that's in addition to still going into the Commons, getting something to go and taking it. There, as the regulations allow, we will have seating available, but you won't be required to stay and eat, and it'll just be an option. So it will be, for those who stayed on campus between March and May, I anticipate it be very similar to that, where you could walk in. There's a lot of social distancing stickers and signage all over our food service units, and so there will be more as we continue to open. But you walk in, you stay 6 feet apart, you're wearing a mask, you're ordering your food, and then you're taking it to go. So that's pretty much what we did March through May, and that will definitely be an option that can continue. We'll add the seated if people are comfortable, they can sit, and if they're not, that's okay. So, and then you have the ability to mobile order, so you don't have to stand in line very long and those sorts of things. So those are the plans that we have for the fall.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and so next question, how would architecture students do remote work? So like making models and designs and things.
Gosh, that's a tough one. So here's what I can say on that, and I can talk about what we're planning on or what we're planning for. And then I know Abby McGrath is also on the call. She's our AVP for Enrollment Services. That's been working with a team, the faculty, on class scheduling for fall, and they're almost ready to come out with their plan. But first of all, for the on-campus environment for architecture in fall, one of the things that's good about Crown Hall is that it's spacious and airy. And what we're planning on is we believe that we'll be able to keep within groups of 50 max, socially distanced, but the groups then doesn't mean you can only have 50 people in Crown Hall, but you can have groups that need to be spaced apart significantly. And I think the distance is 30 feet, which isn't very much, which is kind of silly. But you could imagine having 50 students on 2 different sides of Crown Hall or spread out socially distanced in Crown Hall. We're also going to be utilizing Herman Hall for architecture as additional space. So for example, this would be the South Expo in Herman Hall is similar space, high bay space. that architecture can set up studio environment in, and it also has closed locking doors that can be utilized so that the two aspects of the building can be separated from each other. I know online for architecture, it's pretty much a first for them. March 23rd, all of a sudden, architecture was online also, and so I know, that was a real challenge for the college, and it was a real big learning experience. And I think, that learning experience and quality of improvement will continue for those students who need to be online. So the provost knows a lot more, and Reed knows a lot more about actually the content and the pedagogy of what that will look like. So I'm mainly speaking in terms of right now what we're planning on for in-class experiences for fall for architecture. And so, we can really spread out.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. All right, and then for the next question, when should we expect a final decision regarding reopening campus or not?
We are reopening campus. We will have in the class instruction and residence halls open, and we will have online options. We do have a website. So if you just go to our main page, IIT.edu, at the very top, there's a fall 2020 link. It literally says fall 2020. And you click on that link and it really does show you all of the decisions that we've made so far regarding fall 2020. But definitely being on campus, students can be on campus, students can study online, students can live in the residence halls. So we are going to be open. It's just gonna look a little bit different. And Mike already I talked a little bit about how the classrooms are changing. We have taken all of our typical event space, so the big banquet rooms and all of the space that you would see outside people come, or that's where we just have large assemblies. That is mostly going to be converted into classroom spaces. There are other many of our classrooms are being converted into spaces, not converted, but equipped with extra technology to make sure that we can offer more online classes. So the one thing that we know for sure, unless again, we're told by the city or the state different, but we will be open in some capacity for our students to be in person and in the classroom. I don't know if Mike or Abby, you guys.
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit. So just from my own kind of experience, the one thing I really like is we're being very, very flexible to give, both students and faculty, the flexibility to essentially learn in the best way that they're comfortable with at the time. So one of the cool things is we're investing in technology for 40 classrooms that will make them hybrid classrooms, where basically you can envision an experience where you have, let's just say, students are in a classroom socially distanced with masks on. Professor will be in that room, or could be, but he doesn't have to be. And so there could also be students that are online in that class that are essentially beamed into the classroom. So it's a multimodal scenario that allows situations where if normally, say if a professor lectures to a group of 30 in a usual size classroom, maybe he's lecturing to a group of 30, but spread out over 2 classrooms. And the students could alternate as far as which classroom they're actually in the in-person experience, but they'll still have each other no matter what day. The students will be with other students no matter what day they go to class. And so I think this is going to be, in a way, transformational for the university, because now you can imagine, like, I'm just thinking of my freshman classes when I used to teach ITP and MMAE. It'd be really nice to be able to just beam Gary into my classroom for 5 minutes and have him talk about health and wellness, or beam T from career services into my classroom for 5 minutes. And so these people are going to become much more popular around campus, just because it's going to be much easier for them to, essentially get around, and much easier. Otherwise, it'd take up like half a class, to have Gary, I'm picking on Gary, but to have Gary come visit, because it's like scheduling, waiting, it just, the transitions that are involved, this is just really crisp. So with this struggle comes opportunity also, which I'm excited about. But 40 classrooms is really incredible. The administration, I know Peter just spent $500,000 on this technology to make this happen. So great things do come with a price tag too, but that's not the students' concern.
Awesome.
Just,
Thank you.
yeah. I just like to add one quick thing to that. Just essentially, we are working with the departments and with the faculty member on a very individual basis. So, what is going to happen in an MMA lecture course, it might be totally different from what's going to happen in something from applied technology or something like that. So I know that makes it kind of difficult for us to tell the students, yes, all your classes will be like this. What we're trying to do is give the faculty the most flexibility they possibly can to deliver the material in the way that they are most comfortable and effective about it. So yes, we are working very hard to get the schedules up and decided and get all the information out to the students about how they can determine from the course schedule what their class will look like. So we'll get that out as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah. Abby, just real quick, is it an accurate statement you were saying the other day? Is it accurate to say, like, for the first and second year students, you're shooting to have 70% of their classes have some form of in-person experience? Is that?
Yes, indeed. So yes, our first priorities are the first and second year undergraduate courses to keep in an on-campus environment as much as we possibly can. And we believe with shifting some of the course schedules. So for example, if you have a course that normally meets Tuesday and Thursday at 10 o'clock, it might be moved to Fridays at 4 or something like that. But we believe with some shifting of that, we can get at least 75% of those classes on campus. So.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Sure.
All right, so moving on to the next question. If students don't feel like coming to campus because of safety concerns, can they take online classes? And if so, how can they?
Okay, so again, yes, that's up to the individual faculty, but I will say with a very small handful of exceptions, almost every class that we have is going to be offered in an online format as well as an on-campus one. We have not yet determined how you're going to be able to tell that, like when you look at your course schedule, what's going to be marked as an online versus hybrid or anything like that. But we will get instructions out to the student community immediately as soon as we have that worked out.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so then next question. And yeah, just for those of you who weren't in our meeting, like 5 minutes before, I just have a list of questions that were submitted, and I'm gonna just read them exactly as they are. So just be prepared for that. So the next question, why are freshmen and sophomores still required to live on campus? This seems highly irresponsible, especially given how these classes are. These students will not receive the college experience, and requiring them to live on campus when they're extremely limited in their interactions with others will only leave them feeling isolated and alone.
So if I could begin on that one. So part of it, I like the way the discussion is going, because it's kind of laying the foundation. So when we go back to, Abby's statement, what we're trying to do is for the first and second year students have, get that percentage of in-person instruction up as high as possible. So Abby thinks it's possible, between 70 and 80%. So we do want a vibrant, in-person experience for our first and second year students. Now we did institute the 2-year housing policy, on-campus policy, about 2 years ago. And what that means is when a first year, the policy applies to traditional first year students, that come out of high school. So it's that cohort where the policy applies. And in every for the past several years, in every first year class, about 70% of our students from the class live on campus in our housing. And about 30% actually live within 20 miles of campus, and they actually petition for a waiver so that they can live within 20 miles of campus with their parents. So that's, the waiver process which is handled at the very beginning. Now, once you become, a second year student, your options expand a bit, but it's still on campus. So for example, a student could, I've even seen, second semester, first year students move into a fraternity. So that's on campus. Second year students could, for example, kind of transition. I've seen this, from MSV to an apartment. But we have had situations, in this case, what we're going to have is a situation where if, for example, a second year student who signed a contract and is part of that 2-year agreement, if they say, well, I don't feel comfortable, coming to campus, I'm going to stay home with my parents and take classes online. Well, they will get out of that housing contract. Also there are students who live in our dorms and are subject to the 2-year contract that could have gotten waived at the beginning. So their parents live within 20 miles and they chose to live with us on campus. But they could, for example, be, let's say, hesitant and they want to, for a while, move back with their parents. That's possible. I guess, the thing is, what I don't want to happen is, let's just say the student from California or from anywhere for that matter, where their parents, for example, think that they're, our responsibility to, says you're in our dorms, and then the student, we say it's okay for the student not to live in our dorms and they live with a group of people in Bridgeport, for example, and something happens and their parents don't even know they're living there. So I think that's a complicated situation. So we're going to be very, very flexible. Even, we've been in the past very flexible, even in a case where a student feels, is subject to the 2-year requirement, but felt due to a health issue uncomfortable in their present room, we would accommodate them. And for example, in one case, we moved them to an apartment with a private bathroom, for certain reasons. So we're gonna just, basically, almost have to treat the second year students like the first year students again, in the sense that they can apply for a waiver, but it has to be for kind of one of those, reasons that don't get the student in trouble or us in trouble. So that's the best I can say.
Okay. Sure, thank you. All right, so next question here. Do we have any word from dining services what the arrangements will be? I'm confident that those in Illinois are following protocol and being diligent, both the student population from around the world. Will we have to have modified precautions and requirements for dining, those who are living on campus, because of required lab sessions to feel more comfortable handling their own food, be able to do so without the cost of the meal?
We will, so students who live in the residence halls are required to be in some type of a meal plan. If there's a reason that they don't want to be on the meal plan or can't be on that meal plan, we'll review all of those individually. And as we're being flexible with everything else, we will do our best to be flexible in these situations as well.
Okay. Awesome. And that kind of ties in with like the grab and go thing that we were talking in as well.
Right. It could be that maybe an unlimited plan isn't the right plan, but given the situation, so then we can make it a smaller plan. Or it could be that you need to you don't want to go to the cafeteria during a crowded time, so how can I accommodate that sort of request? Or it could be that, yes, somebody just doesn't, this being on a meal plan is not a means for success, and so we will address that as well. So there'll be varied, lots of different ways to look at these situations, and we make accommodations all the time, and Chartwell's will do everything they can to make sure they can accommodate, and if they can't, then we would talk about, canceling that plan if that was the best thing for the student.
Okay, for sure. Thank you. All right, next question. Why has there been no direct communication with students as to what is occurring with fall 2020 housing? No emails have been sent out to students. Direct communication for changes in housing procedures is vital.
So we are communicating with students. Perhaps we could do more. What we are doing right now is we're assigning rooms, so there's nothing to communicate right now because we're in the process of making those assignments, and we're planning in the next couple of days by July 1st that we'll be able to communicate the specifics about where people will live if they have a housing contract. The other communication has come out in various emails, but again, I'm going to direct people to that website, the Fall 2020 website, because it does address housing questions and housing accommodation needs and things like that. That will be the best place for students to, and their families, to look. We're going to update that in real time as decisions and things are made and as policies change. That was going to be our main way. So if you're just wondering, what are we thinking, go to that website and there should be your answer. And then if there isn't, you reach out to us for sure. But we're trying to monitor that and try to anticipate as many questions as possible so we can keep that updated. And then it's things like this type of meeting. And I know we talked before this call a little bit to have another President Provost forum before the school year starts. And so we are dedicated and super excited to communicate with students in as many different ways as we can, because some students will say they love emails. Some students will say they never read emails. Some students will love logging on here. Some won't want to log on here. And we could also provide like a transcript, not transcript exactly, but maybe a summary of this call based on the questions, and make sure that they're covered on the website, and even do a communication with students to say, hey, in case you missed this, here's what we talked about, and here's just a quick update. So we're open to doing all those things.
And just real quick, and then Tony Riley, who's our AVP for undergraduate admission, she and Katie and others are working on kind of a reopening town hall for both continuing students and new students. And that most likely will be scheduled the week of like July 11th. The date hasn't been set exactly, but the president will be on this town hall and those dates are good for him. And we'll be a little bit more visual in that town hall, where there's a kind of a reopening video where Jess Good and his team are doing a great job showing kind of in that format what campus will be like. We'll have pictures of classrooms, what this new technology looks like. Bruce Watts gave a really good presentation just the other day to the faculty and staff about reopening, cleanliness, elevator occupancy, many different things. And Gary has a nice presentation on opening health and wellness, and there are others. So what we want to do is really show pictures and some video to just give a clearer idea of what it will be like. You can imagine it, but I think pictures are really going to make it much more clear.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So next question here. Okay, I think this was kind of addressed in a previous question, but here it is again. Can the decision to require freshmen and sophomores to live on campus be justified beyond the school needing their housing money?
We talked about that. Yes, you're right. But definitely we will, if students have questions about whether or not they want to live on campus, they should reach out to us and we'll be reviewing each of those requests individually. But in terms of the requirement, that's not going to change. But definitely we understand that students have lots of concerns right now, and we want to see how we can meet those needs, whether it be through a different accommodation, whether it be through canceling the contract, whatever that might be. But those are better if we do those individually, but we are definitely entertaining requests.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and
yeah, several options with a different accommodation, whether it be a different room or a single room. It could be getting out of the contract, living at home, with parents. And so we're going to just, kind of enforce the policy, keep our policy, but we do have a waiver policy, and so we're going to, be taking those very seriously and holistically, just to do the very best that we can for all of our students.
awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, so for our next question, if people who have labs who have to go to school on campus and have high-risk family at home, would they be given the option to go online for some classes and just the lab in person to minimize contact?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
The easy answer is yes.
Definitely.
I mean, that's a really great option, and I think Abby will agree.
Yes, and that is a scenario we're planning for a lot of students as well. Yeah.
Because you can imagine you have a big chemistry lecture and maybe the lecture is okay online, but you don't want to do the lab online. So even just for pedagogy purposes, and then you could have more sections of labs to keep everything socially distant. So it's going to be tough on the faculty. I mean, they're going to be they're going to be working hard to, pull all of this off.
Awesome, thank you. All right, next question. How will the in-person class caps mentioned on the fall 2020 website be enforced?
Abby knows that one.
Okay, so I can help you out with that a little bit. So first of all, we do have course maximums that are preset into our registration system. And one of the things that the registrar staff is working on right now is changing those ones that are most definitely going to be an in-person only class to reflect the correct maximum for the student's room number. Beyond that, so let's say we have a very large lecture class that's 100 students, but the room that we have will only allow for 50 at a time. What we've been working with the faculty on is a way that they can fairly alternate that, and part of that is enforcement. Like, how are you going to make sure that the class caps remain below X percentage and everything like that? We have some interesting plans from very different sectors. And again, this is something that's kind of going to vary by department and by individual faculty member. But we're quite confident that they're going to make sure all the rooms are not going to be exceeded in terms of capacity. In addition to just the administrative parts of this, we will be, wherever possible, physically removing furniture and that sort of thing so that there simply aren't enough seats for more than the required capacity of the students. In places where the chairs are fixed, like bolted to the floor, that kind of thing, we'll be taping off some of the chairs. So again, it would be very difficult to exceed it physically without having students just standing around in the back and milling around, which would be very easy for a faculty member to spot and stop things and check. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So for our next question, some students who work on campus lost their jobs due to COVID-19. Are you going to give them an option to work other jobs on campus? And if so, who can they contact about that?
T?
Yeah, I'm here. So this is a
Career Services.
Yeah. So they certainly can connect with Career Services. So an email could certainly be sent directly to me, and either myself or a member of my staff will work with the students. So we've worked with a number of students already this summer that have either lost positions, on campus, or in some cases internships as well. So I think our office would be probably the first point of contact for that.
Yeah, that's a good liaison, because it's a little, depending on the situation the student is, many of our students are eligible for federal work study, and then there's kind of that money flows through financial aid and is distributed through financial aid, and then jobs are posted through student employment, which is managed by the Human Resources Department at IIT. And so those two areas are, I would say, more administrative areas. And so T's area could be more, you know, it helps place students, and it also is helping to get the types of jobs that students can do in this environment. And you know, we're going to, you know, essentially spend all of our federal work study money, and so that will continue. And I think there's you know, even though some jobs have been lost, there are different opportunities that will come up for students that, you know, I think there'll be more, for example, undergraduate TA type positions in this environment. And T, aren't you going to also have a virtual career on-campus career fair at the beginning of
Yeah. We're definitely considering that too, you know, at this stage. We're working with a lot of companies that are close to campus. We worked with companies in Tech Park that have done some hiring as well. So technically those positions in Tech Park are not considered on campus, but essentially they are. So there's a lot of outreach that's happening right now. So
we actually, you know, like there are certain areas that hire a lot of students. The Academic Resource Center went to online tutoring, so the demand for student services there is very high and will continue to be high. I think, you know, during the summer months, because, like, for example, a lot of jobs were in housing, during the summer months, because we're down to so few students in the dorms, we actually had to downsize our student support desk staff to monitor the buildings because there weren't students in the building. So, you know, those kind of things are unfortunate, you know, but hopefully you know, those jobs, you know, many of those will come back in the fall because we'll have full dorms. And then, or most of those will come back, and then there'll be other opportunities.
definitely. So I would say definitely connect with us. You know, we're definitely here to help, and we're available right now.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next question here is which dining facilities, like 7-Eleven, Commons, Global Grounds, etc., will be open during the upcoming year? And are they going to be working in their normal hours?
Right. So everything but the bog is scheduled to be open at this point in time. And as I mentioned before, we're, you know, adding new technology to make it a little bit easier and less congested at those areas. So you can anticipate 10 West, Global Grounds, the Commons, Center Court, and Kaplan to all be open. And as I said before, the bog just will be the only one that's not really open. Now that is subject to change just based on anything that could change. But right now, even with the current guidelines, there's no reason we couldn't have those venues open. I think they offer something different in each case. So I think that it makes sense to have the variety of open. We may see a change in hours, just maybe we won't be open as many hours just because we won't have as many people, you know, there won't be as much of a demand, but we can be flexible with that. And so I think we have decided to do limited hours in the fall, but that's actually just based on sales during regular time. So for example, Global Grounds may be open until 8 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. because we would see on a general, like regular pre-COVID time, that the sales weren't really enough to keep it open between 8 and 10. So you'll maybe see some things like that, but overall, every venue but the bog will be open.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, and then some next question here. Why were students not notified of housing changes all at once, i.e., why is it that only a select few were made aware that the on-campus living was being changed to a single student-only living space and that first and second years would be given priority?
Well, we have not officially changed anything. The requirement is the first and second year students are required. So since they're required, the priority just in that line of thinking goes to that group of students. And we did send an email out and put everything on the FAQs about having the opportunity to choose a single room or stay with roommates depending on your preference. So that was a wide communication. It was not just selected, a select few. Again, as I stated before, we're happy to communicate it more and more and more. So we will continue to do that, but also know that the fall 2020 site is going to have all of this information, and we'll work together to get it out.
Yeah, that was a tough one, because I think, Katie, when did that email go out? It was like just a couple weeks ago, or I can't remember. But we were debating at the time, following the city and the state. We thought that we would have to, go to, for example, half occupancy across the board in our housing, and then and then all of a sudden the guidelines became different. But we wanted to give the opportunity for, students, if they felt comfortable, to live in a single. And so, that communication went out, and we adjusted our occupancy projections then. So some of this, I mean, it's really amazing when this whole process has been a moving target and things keep changing. And so that's I think the toughest thing is, the communication piece. It's the most important, and sometimes the toughest, especially when you don't have the information and you don't quite know what's going to happen. So I'm just, it's no excuse, but that's kind of one of the tough parts of this. It's just, things just keep changing.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So yeah, the next question here. Will off-campus students be allowed to dine at the Commons?
Yeah, there's no reason. I would love for more students to dine at the Commons.
I know.
Whether they just drop in or get a meal plan, we do have commuter meal plans, so I would highly recommend people look at those, but absolutely, everyone's welcome.
Okay, for sure. Awesome. All right, and then next question here. Because of current circumstances, could there be a way for students to have a virtual tour of Kasich Hall?
Yes, we're working on that, trying to get some, I know Patrick was working on that, get just some video and even maybe some soreliers taking them through. So we hope to have that up pretty soon.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and then next question. For online classes, will professors have a specific app for monitoring tests and quizzes?
Okay, so again, there are multiple different ways that the faculty can present exams, quizzes, that sort of thing. There are some opportunities in Blackboard that allow for that sort of thing, and that's what the faculty be encouraged to use as much as they can. We are also devoting some space that would normally be reserved for our event halls for the faculty reserve as an exam facility. This will be available all throughout the semester, not just for finals or anything like that. So if they want to conduct an in-person exam session, that will be a possibility. And lastly, I know that the Faculty Council is looking into a proctoring service for students. I have not heard if they have made a decision on that yet, but perhaps Mike has.
No, I haven't. I mean, kind of the two services that we have used extensively would be ProctorU is one, and Examity, is the other one. And I think, for many, it works fine, and faculty like it, and students are fine with it, and then others are not. So we're, so we're struggling with that a little bit. But I think, ultimately, especially, many classes will be in this hybrid mode. We will have to have hybrid test taking.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Well, that actually was the last question that we received. So thank you all. Oh.
I wasn't looking at the question, so I didn't know what number we were on. I was like, woo.
Oh yeah, no, The ones towards the end were submitted while the
Oh, great. Okay.
that's why there were some that you might not have been familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yes, thank you all for answering the questions. There were some doozies in there, but we appreciate the
We've seen
communication.
worse. We've seen good ones.
That's right. These are easy.
And for everyone watching, thank you for submitting your questions. The more communication that we have is definitely better. So thank you everyone for doing this. It's been a really awesome experience.
Yeah. I wanted to also say thank you to all the students and everyone who submitted a question. It's super important, and
Absolutely.
you know, we are here for you, and we would do this daily if we had to, or if it warranted, or weekly, or never. But we definitely are here for you and want to make sure that there are no questions, or there are limited questions, because it's not because we're not communicating that there are questions. So I just want to make sure that students know they can always access us and take advantage of these things. So thanks.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank the SGA for, your leadership and for giving us your time and helping us, kind of communicate, in a real way to the students. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's what we do.
We will do more of this. And again, thank you very much. Thanks for everybody.
This is easier sometimes, isn't it? I think it's easier than email.
Yeah. And now, Alex, it's recorded. So where is it going to be streaming? Where can people see it later?
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to post this recording on the SGA website. Like right now, there's like a link on the SGA website where people could watch, and we're watching. Great. So we will post the recording most likely on the SGA website.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Sounds good. Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Thanks everybody, and thanks everybody who joined us and helped us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely. So have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Enjoy the upcoming warm weather, I think. So that's a nice thing.
Yes.
All right.